When our next speaker went to high school, his parents received the advice not to let him take Latin as a subject, but of course he still did choose Latin and then learned that it wasn't for him. The advice was the right one, he failed in Latin. But his parents told him that it was okay. He did not fail as a person, he just failed in something he had tried. At that age of 12 years old, he didn't quite understood the lesson, but later on he did. Let me introduce you to Yves Hanoulle. He calls himself a creative collaboration agent.
Okay, so this is why I am here, but what I'm also interested in, doesn't work, yeah. I would like to know, why are you here? Because some people, I assume that when you come here, you have an idea why you want to learn or what you have. So what I would like you to do is take a minute and think about your biggest problem, the problem that you currently have. It could be a professional problem, it could be a personal problem. So I would like you to think and talk for 1 minute. So I would like you to talk with your neighbor for 1 minute and think about what is currently your biggest problem. And if it's too big, you can choose another one, right? We're halfway in. If you haven't switched over, you need to switch over now. Okay, thank you very much. So I want to talk and say, and actually Kim already talked about it before, work-life balance is for me one of the biggest things. We have been a lot of tweets, a lot of things published, and like Kim said, work-life balance it can be sometimes hard as well. So let me give you an example. I was asked to speak here and was really happy. Okay, I can talk here. And then I received an email from the schools that, hey, everything is on strike, so the schools are on strikes as well. So now I have this opportunity. Or I can talk here, or I can be and spend time with my kids for a full day. So that is a work-life balance problem. So, but then I realized, well, it should not be just always about being in balance. There's also the opportunity to do work-life fusion. And I could just bring my kids here.
Dad, instead of talking experiments, let's do an experiment.
So we're going to have him on stage. So, what is your name?
Joppe.
How old are you?
I'm 12 years old.
Have you ever spoken at a conference before?
Yes.
Oh, in English?
No.
Okay. Are you scared?
A little.
I'm a lot.
Dad, that's boring. Let's do an experiment.
Yes, you said you want to do an experiment. So, if we want to do an experiment, what do we need to do an experiment?
We need a safe environment.
Is failing forward a safe environment?
Yes, I think so.
I think so too, but that's just us. We need to verify our assumptions when we do experiments. So what we're going to do, instead of just us asking, thinking that it's safe, we're going to ask the audience if you think it's safe. So we're going to ask the question twice. The first time I only want people who think it's not a safe environment to just say no, and the second time if you think it's yes, then you shout yes. Okay, so. 3, 2, 1. Okay, not many responses. So if you think it's a safe environment.
3, 2, 1.
Yes. Okay, so that's already good. So what is our experiment about? Our experiment is with pair working. So we want to do this conversation. So we have two versions of this talk. We have a version that I can do on my own, and we have a version that we do both of us. So we would like, instead of just, again, with experiments, we have to validate our things, and we have to check with our audience if they're happy with it. So we're going to ask again 2 questions. So the first time, I'm going to ask if you want just me on stage and having this thing, and you just shout my name, or the second time, you shout his name if you want to do it both of us. My ego is too big to ask if it's just him on stage. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, well, at least somebody wants me. And then 3, 3, 1.
2.
Okay, so that's going fine. Let's celebrate.
Would you celebrate it as the people say no?
This is a really interesting question. Would we have celebrated this if it would have just been no? Yes, for me, we would still have celebrated it, because the thing to celebrate is the learning. We want to celebrate that we're learning things, right? Oh, sorry. So we're failing also.
So you said that every time you fail, you learn and change direction.
That's true. That's exactly what I'm saying.
But what if you don't learn?
Yeah. So this happens, that sometimes you do something and you don't learn, like just in this picture. What I would like people to do more is when you fail, there is something that's called a failure bow. So when you fail, you can just say, oops, I failed. Yeah? And if you don't want to do that inside a meeting, you can just do it with your 2 fingers below the table. So something like that. When you fail, you just say, okay, I failed, and then you ask for help. You ask people for help so that you can check if people have some better idea.
So it can that you first fail, then celebrate, and then learn.
That's exactly.
But how can you be happy as you fail and don't learn?
Well, if you look at this picture from your sister when she was very old, she's clearly failing to go forward. She was still happy. And why was she happy? She was happy because she still learned something. She learned that she was not able to do it, but this is still learning. So you might think that you fail and you don't learn anything, but you learned that you're not able to do it. Just like Edison said, he didn't fail 5,000 times creating a light bulb. He actually learned that there were 5,000 ways not to do it, and that he would eventually find one that would work. So what I would like to have much more people is celebrate their failings. And a lot of people tell me, yeah, but isn't that, because if you don't you always want to celebrate when we do learn something? I prefer that we celebrate also when we fail and when we don't learn, because by doing that we create an atmosphere, we create an environment where failing is okay. If we don't do that, we'll end up with an environment where mistakes are hidden, just like in this picture. And the problem with that is that the mistakes only becomes visible when they're really, really big and you can't hide them anymore.
And what with big failures?
So how do we deal with these big ones? Do you remember this picture?
Yes, it's the house that you burned off.
Yes, so in the introduction they said, I only learned it later. This is the house I burned down when I was 19, the 1st of August 1991. This is a big kind of mistake. It's something that you cannot hide. In theory, my parents were on holiday, right? So in theory, I could have hidden it for 2 more weeks, right? I could just not have told them. But I think you kind of realize that it's not something you can hide for a very long time. So I decided very quickly, let's make sure that I tell them on the first day and immediately and tell them about it, because they will find out anyway. You can hide a lot of things as kids, but not this kind of thing. And then that is also important. Some of these big things, they happen and you cannot hide them. And that is okay.
What did your parents say when they came home?
Yeah, so that's the real question. A lot of people say, what did they tell you? Because you just burned down their house. Well, I don't know the exact words they said, but the good thing is they keep supporting me and they never, ever, ever blamed me. Yeah? Okay, like Kim said just earlier on, she had 15 minutes between the failing and then talking on. My parents they were in the south of France, so they had one day in the car to think about how they would react to me, which helps probably, but they never ever blamed me. And they kept supporting me. And the real thing I do remember is what my mother did when she came home. My mother hugged me. Now, I was 19, so you're a teenager also, so you know that hugging at this point is not the most favorite thing of kids. And at 19, I don't think I ever received hugs in, I don't know, the 2-3 years before. But at that time, that was a really important message. Because the message was, you failed, but you're not a failure. And I think this is the big important message there. Yes, you can fail, but it's not because you fail and you burn down the house that we've been... Well, my mother had been begging for a new kitchen for years. So she had her brand new kitchen 2 months and I burned it down. So she couldn't even enjoy it for a very long time. It's not that we're happy about it, but they were happy I survived it. They were happy that in the end, everything turned out fine. If you want to know more, we can talk more about everything else. But for me, the big message, I learned a lot of that. And I learned that failing was okay. Yeah, so how do you deal with these big failures? How can you avoid some of these big failures?
You take small steps for even a big goal.
Yes, so we want to do small steps. So I want to talk a little bit about an example. I assume that most of you know Amazon. Amazon has, I don't know, a few thousand developers, and they put things into production in a very, very short time frame. So I would like you as an audience to think a little bit, what do you think is the short time between putting things in production, between something, writing some code, and something new, not new data, but really something new, a functionality that is put on the new website. So think for yourself, how would be that short time? Joppe, what is it?
11.6 seconds.
Think for that. In 2011, the mean time between putting 2 things in production was 11.6 seconds. We've been talking, what, about 10 minutes? That's 50 things that have been put in production since we started talking. This is not that every development put something in production every 11 seconds, but the whole of Amazon, every time you do this. And so why would we do this?
So you fail fast?
Yeah, so the idea is we want to fail fast. And what's good about failing fast?
Your failures are smaller.
Our failures are a lot smaller. And because the failures are a lot smaller, it's much easier to adapt to that. And so what is an extra advantage is?
Fast feedback.
So fast feedback. We want to learn and get fast feedback. Now feedback, there's multiple ways to think about feedback. There's the feedback between when something goes wrong in a production environment, there's feedback that we receive as a person, but there's also feedback here from the guitar. Does anyone of the audience know who this picture is? Eric Clapton, indeed. This is a very old picture of Eric Clapton, but probably most of you won't recognize. And he's one of these guitar players that in the 60s was able to turn feedback, the guitar feedback, into music, which was new at that time. And a lot of guitar players were doing that. So Joppe, you're learning to play the guitar. How easy is that to do, create music with feedback?
Really hard.
So, and this is one of the things I want to tell to people, that when you do have feedback in a company, it's really, really hard. Getting feedback, receiving feedback, and learning something from it. It's not that easy. Yeah? And I think most of us know that even in a relationship, telling someone, hey, you did something wrong, but still at the same time telling, it's a failure, it's a failing thing that you did, but you're not a failure. So that is really something important there. So we have a few feedback loops that we still want to stop, close. So what we'd like you to do is talk again for 1 minute with your neighbor, but talk about things that you just heard, and could they apply that and learn something from it for their problem. So don't think about your problem, but think about how could it help their problem. So think about this for a minute. switched over. This is the time to switch over. Okay, so we still have another feedback loop to close. So we did this experiment, and you were all happy to have both of us on stage. So we would like to also do a reality check. Are you happy with this experiment? Do you think it was a great idea to have him on stage? So, and because he's 12, I thought, he doesn't know this, but I thought a good way to say if you're happy or not. If you're not happy, you just stay down, but if you're happy, please stand up and give him a warm applause. Okay, so
thanks.
We still have a few things to talk about. We want to review what we talked about. So the first thing?
We did an experiment.
A good one, apparently. Oh, sorry. So we celebrate the learning, even if we fail. We still want to celebrate the learning.
We support people when they fail.
We want to do smaller steps, and I really encourage you, every time you do something, when you fail, try to take smaller steps. Think about what Amazon did and try to see if you can do it even smaller, so that there is less chance of failing.
And we learn to handle feedback in a positive way.
Thank you very much.
Hominus sumus non Dei.
So we are people, not gods.